So in this video, I'm going to get straight to the point. This is Nancy Pelosi, former U.S. House Speaker. If you're wondering, U.S. House Speaker, that's the person that's second in line to the presidency, the third most powerful person in the United States. When Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, her salary was $180,000 a year. Well, you think that's pretty good, right? So what do you think Nancy Pelosi's net worth is? 5 million? 10 million, 20 million? Well, if you Google her net worth, a bunch of different numbers pop up, but the roughly estimated range is anywhere between 100 to 200 million US dollars. Yes, you heard that correct. How's that possible? It's very simple. And this is called lobbying, insiders trading, Ponzi scheme, money laundering. The list goes on and on and on. Almost every single politician does this.
I hope that our colleagues will choose democracy and decency rather than autocracy and evil, because I fear that if you choose the Putin route, you will have blood on your hands. Blood of the children, blood of their mothers, raped in front of their parents, raped in front of their children.
In fact, do you know who's the best at this? It's Hillary Rodham Clinton. Okay, that's why she has so many donors and lobbyists. I'll give you an example. Someone like George Soros, who is a 100% anarchist. He can go up to one of these Democrats and he can say that, I'm going to be your donor. I'm going to give you $2 million each year for the next 10 years. And in exchange, I want you guys to push these radical Marxist socialist agendas into our education systems, into our mainstream medias. Things like Black Lives Matter, teaching critical race theory, and also movements like the 2S LGBTQ++ movement. And where do they come up with this money? It's quite simple. If you just trace the roots of it. For example, okay, you guys saw this new aid package that's going to Ukraine. $95 billion in total, $61 billion going to Ukraine, the rest going to Israel and going to Taiwan. That's just ridiculous. A portion of this money is going to Taiwan. Clearly, these politicians, they don't give the shit about the American citizens at all, okay? Well, Taiwan is one of the wealthiest regions on Earth in terms of GDP per capita, thanks to TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. Do you know who owns a massive stock in TSMC? Nancy Pelosi. Remember, she visited Taipei back in 2022 to meet with the Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen. By the way, Tsai Ing-wen's also a lesbian. I'll cover her in a separate video. But did you guys know that during this trip, Nancy Pelosi's one-day trip to Taipei, her net worth increased by over $3 million. This is how these politicians get insanely rich, because the stocks for TSMC skyrocketed overnight. Do you really think people get lucky at the stock market? No. So any one of these elite politicians, they can say that, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to inject $1 million of cash into the euro, and I want the euro to go up by 5 cents for just a few hours before it drops. And right before it drops, I'm going to sell it off. And just like that, with the 5 cents increase, they made that 50 grand in just a few hours. Okay, almost every single politician does this. They do this right in front of you. Okay, let's dig deeper. Okay, before I go to Ukraine, I want to bring back the point of helium. Remember, I talked about helium in the past video. It's extremely important because at this point, if we were to stop excavating helium from underneath the Earth's crust, we'd be running out of helium within the next 34 years. Why is this so important? Well, helium is a natural gas form. It's the second lightest element in the observable universe, so it is extremely hard to capture helium. Once you release it with those stupid party balloons, it goes into the atmosphere and drifts into space, and it never comes back. However, do you know what's something interesting about helium? Okay, helium, when it's turned into its liquid form, liquid helium is extremely rare and extremely difficult to find, because the melting point for helium is close to absolute zero. Why do we need the helium at such a low temperature? Because it is used for MRI scans in hospitals across the world, because MRI scans requires these magnets and these electronics to heat up to an extreme temperature, and the only element that is able to cool down these equipments for the MRI scans is helium. And there are also many other usages for helium. You know those red scanners at the grocery stores, at the checkout counters? You see those red lasers? Yes, they all require liquid helium as well, and it's extremely important. And the United States has one of the world's largest reserves of helium. The reserve is being held in Amarillo, Texas. There's estimated to be over 1 billion cubic meters of helium being held there. Just recently, a few months ago, the United States has sold 30% of this to private shareholders. Who are they selling it to? I'm going to make a connection. Let's look at the largest railroad company in Canada, CN Railway. It used to be owned by the federal government. However, in 1995, it was privatized. So who owns CN Railway? The largest shareholder of CN Railway is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Part of it is also owned by BlackRock. Okay, this is the most powerful company in the world. This is the list of some of the top companies that's being owned by BlackRock. In fact, if you just Google search anything, almost every single powerful company out there has a percentage of their stock owned by BlackRock. For example, all the other train companies, they follow the same format. BNSF, Union Pacific, CSX, they all have a portion of their company be owned by BlackRock. BlackRock also owns State Street and Vanguard. And if you try to figure out who owns these three companies, well, they kind of own each other. And who is on top of all of this, you really can't find a single person. It becomes basically the simplest term to put it is that it's a club and you're not invited. I'm not just talking about Larry Fink. Okay, he's just one person. This is a very exclusive club. And any single decision they make can destroy the lives of millions of people. So why is the US so obsessed with Ukraine? Okay, never mind Russia, okay? The resources in Ukraine are extremely valuable. Did you guys know that Ukraine has the most arable land on Earth? On Earth, okay? Just look at this list. If you just Google the list of countries with the highest percentage of arable land, you have Denmark, Bangladesh, and Ukraine. However, Denmark and Bangladesh, those are extremely tiny countries. And it's very important to look at this number. This is why such a small country like Bangladesh, that's why how they can have a population of over 170 million. The land in Ukraine, 56% of the land in Ukraine is arable, okay? Ukraine is roughly the same size as Texas. This is a massive natural resource. It is a breadbasket of the world. Yes, Ukraine alone can produce enough crop to feed the entire world. That's why US and NATO is so obsessed with it. And right now, the land in Ukraine is currently being sold. It's being privatized to other companies. So who is Ukraine selling their lands to? It's to companies like DuPont and Cargill. So who owns a percentage share in these companies like DuPont and Cargill? It's BlackRock. See, they control everything. In fact, I can tell you this right now. Okay, the elite circle that's behind BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard, who owns 88% of the S&P 500. This elite circle, they also control the Federal Reserve. They control the Congress. You know what? If they say that tomorrow you have to print $1 trillion in relief packages and send to all of these countries, then the Congress will approve a bill to print $1 trillion. And by the way, printing money, I'm sure all of you guys know at this point, printing money only makes every single dollar that's out there in the circulation worth less. So the more money they print, the less money you have. All this does is to destroy the American middle class. Let me make something clear, okay? The Federal Reserve, it's not owned by the feds, okay? It's privately owned. And this information, this is not some deep state CIA secret. It's out in the open, right? You can look it up. These are the men who founded the Federal Reserve back on Jekyll Island in Georgia, okay? Ever since then, the Federal Reserve has never been owned by the feds. The last US president that tried to print money by bypassing the Federal Reserve was President John F. Kennedy on June 4th, 1963. He signed the Executive Order 11110 in order to print 4.3 billion US dollars in what is known as the silver certificates because he wants to stay away from the Federal Reserve and he wants less American citizens to rely on the dollar by printing these silver certificates. So he signed this act on June of 1963. He went to Dallas in November and he got his head blown open.
We must protect the position of the American dollar as a pillar of monetary stability around the world. The strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators. I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
Almost every single politician is corrupt. It's unfortunate, that's the truth. So why is this happening? Why is the world allowing this? Well, here's the inconvenient truth that nobody wants to hear. If you were put into that same position, you would do the exact same thing, because money changes people, money corrupts people, generally for the worse and not for the better. Think about it. What would you do? If you were just a middle-class American struggling to make ends meet, you're making what, 40 to 50K a year, right? What if someone like Larry Fink, what if someone like George Soros came up to you and says that, you know what? I think you can make a good politician. I'm going to donate to you $10 million for the next 10 years. That's $100 million. And I want you to push some radical extremist agenda that's going to destroy the American middle class. Would you do it? I can guarantee you this. 98 out of 100 people would say yes. So it's very unfortunate, but that's the world we live in. That's why politicians like Nancy Pelosi can have a net worth of up to $200 million.